Wednesday, February 22nd, and like I said at the beginning, we're going to be talking a lot about this guy today, Winston Churchill. But first, homework is the same as when I posted it before, lesson 60, note cards, Middle East map quiz on Monday. Does anybody have any questions? That's a note. Matt. You do not need to pour out all your pens. Just grab a pen if you even need it. Okay, let's move on to...
So where did you post the extra homework?
On Facts?
Like the coming up, you said that you post
On Facts. On the right days. On Facts. Yeah, it's posted through the end of the 2 weeks. Okay, so today I'm very, very pleased with our opening segment, our prayer segment, because it ties together nicely so many different things. We have Black History Month, and also World War II, and also the Westminster Verse of the Year, all wrapped up in one nice little package. So let me tell you about who I'm going to use for our story. I really hope that some of you have heard of this guy before. He is not just sometimes I tell you, you ought to know this person. This is a person you really should know. His name's Jesse Owens, and he is noteworthy mostly because he was a very fast runner. He was the first American, now I'm not saying minority, African American, he was the first American at all to win 4 gold medals in the Olympics as a track athlete. And he won these during the 1936 Olympics. Now, how this ties into our lesson today is that the 1936 Olympics was held in Germany. All right, you guys know enough about the dates to be able to place this. Is the 1936 Olympics before or after World War I? After. Is it before or after World War II? Before. Was it very long before? About how many years? About 3 years before World War II started. Was Hitler already in power? Yes, he not only was in power, he was running things. And he used the Olympics. Countries often use the Olympics to showcase themselves. He used the Olympics to show that he had made Germany great again. It was his goal. He was showcasing a Germany that was clean, that was military, that was powerful. And do you think by this point he was already saying the racist things that he was going to end up saying? That's part of how he was building up the confidence of the German people, by telling them that there is an ideal and superior person. And what does this person look like? The person looks like what? White. Blonde hair, blue eyes, Aryan, an Aryan German. This is the ideal person, the superior person. Now, we've heard a lot about how Hitler was explicitly racist when it comes to being against a lot of ethnicities. Polish people, gypsies, Jews, he just targeted a lot of groups. And you have never heard that Hitler put black people in extermination camps to get rid of them. Because it's Germany. There weren't a lot of African Americans because it's not America. And he also wasn't really operating in Africa. So it just wasn't a group that he was particularly targeting because he didn't have a lot of black people in his country. Oh, but he was racist against black people too. Because that was the whole point. Like, people that looked like the Aryan race were supposed to be clearly superior in his way of thinking. So when the Olympics came, what he wanted to do was showcase German athletes as being, in general, far superior to everybody else. So when Jesse Owens came, Jesse Owens, who was in the 1930s in America, suffering in his own world where he had to sort of, make his way in an environment that had a lot of segregation, a lot of issues in America. But he came as an American representative and won 4 different medals. I'm going to show you a picture of one of the stands he was on. Here you see Jesse Owens on the top because he is the number 1. He got the gold medal. You see the German next to him, hailing Hitler, Heil Hitler, right next to him, and you see the other German officials doing the same. So the entire environment was still very oriented toward this sort of Hitler worship that was common to Germany at the time. What's that? Somebody from just a different country. I don't know what country he was from.
It's interesting that the winner is wearing the jersey.
Well, he just had on, I think it was a blue sweatsuit. It was just the team sweats. You can see it says USA on it. Yeah, that's why it's that color.
Did Hitler have on here?
No, he did not. I don't know. It's always confused me. Yeah, he was not himself any sort of ideal.
So I read a book recently about Louis Zamperini or something, and he was a fighter. He was a runner, and then he was a fighter, and then he was his plane crashed, and then he was a
POW.
Yeah, but I think he was in that Olympics, and Hitler called him up or something and said something to him. But yeah,
it was in the same story. So I'm going to go back to here and say the part of how I want to bring the stories together is with this terminology right here, Imago Dei. Can anybody translate this into English for me?
Doesn't it Dei mean God?
Yes, Dei means God. So Imago Dei,
Well, isn't the name of the school?
there is a school called Imago Dei Neighborhood School, right? Does anybody want to guess what Imago is? Image. So Imago Dei, the term Imago Dei means the image of God, and it comes from the Westminster verse of the year, Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. The term Imago Dei comes from this, in his own image, in the image of God. What was underlying all of Hitler's racist ideology is that he did not think that there was anything that the people that were inferior in his mind were less of humans. And I think it's part of why we react to Hitler, even though I've told you before, Mao killed more people, Stalin through his starvation stuff caused the deaths of more people. But Hitler was just so horrifyingly dehumanizing in the way that he did this. And it's really this idea, this right here. So if we as a people treated others as image bearers of God, that would be like a foundational theological idea. This is the foundational idea that helps people to be respectful of other people and to treat others with kindness. Now, I'm not saying that the idea of Imago Dei keeps wars from happening, but it might create the idea, like we have in Western civilization, that wars should have rules. The other people against whom you're fighting are still people. And when you're going into a sports competition, you don't have to see your opponents as unhuman, as monsters. They're just opponents. If you are dealing with people in any context, it doesn't matter if you're close to them, if you're positive or not positive. It's still, the Imago Dei still gives us the idea that we can treat others with respect. And that is sort of the framing, the formation thing that helps us. All right, so let's use this idea to pray and start our class today. Let's pray. Lord, we do thank you that you have created all of us in your image as image bearers. We pray that you would help us to see others, whether it is the homeless person that is asking for money, or a person that we're competing against, or if it is somebody that's a bully, or if it's somebody that's a good buddy of ours. Help us to see all of them as image bearers so that we can fundamentally treat others with respect and kindness, and in that you could create a world that, while it's not free of conflict or even free of war, it is a world in which people operate with respect and can appreciate the value of others' lives. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. We only have time for one person to practice the map today. Okay, Madeline, come on and do it for us. Only if she wants a pointer.
No, last time I was distracted.
No, down.
Running out.
Up. This small one up, yeah. He's out in the ocean.
Thank you so much. All right, map quiz is Monday. And don't forget to practice, and you have the map ready for you to practice. Okay, everyone stand up. Time to review our speech. Okay, look up here. We're going to go over this 3 times, and we're not adding anything new today. This is just a review so far. We're going from the front down to we shall never surrender. 3 times only, starting at the top. Everyone get ready to go. Get yourself all warmed up, relaxed. Ready? Set. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. 2 more times. This is the second one. Ready? We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. Last time. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. You can sit down. And even if, which I do not for a moment believe, this island, or a large part of it, were subjugated and starving, then our empire beyond the seas, armed and guarded by the British fleet, would carry on the struggle until, in God's good time, the new world, with all its power and might, steps forth to the rescue and liberation of the old. Okay, those are the words of Winston Churchill. And like I said, he's a little bit of our theme today. Winston Churchill was a man who was in a position of power in Britain at just the right moment. He took the position of prime minister after the person was replaced, the person whom he replaced, had a completely different strategy toward politics. And you read about it a little bit with the Munich Pact. His strategy was peace. Peace at all costs. Keep Britain out of another war. No hands right now. Keep Britain out of another war. The peace of protecting the soldiers, protecting the lives of the soldiers. And Neville Chamberlain and some of the other people that he shared power with, and you'll see them in some of the movie that I show you today, wanted peace because what they were prioritizing is not entering back into a World War I situation again. What they did not factor in was Hitler's tyrannical, never-ending desire for land, power, money, and taking over everything. Churchill thought that Hitler was a despot, a tyrant, and that Hitler had to be stopped. And he had to be stopped by waging war. Churchill was often called a warmonger because it seemed like what he wanted was war. But he believed that Hitler was unstoppable without sacrifice, without people laying down their lives, and that is actually what was called, what England was called to, for the sake of its future, for having any hope for the future. Raise your hand if you think in this setting that Chamberlain might have been right. Who thinks that Churchill was probably right? The peace guy. Chamberlain is the peace guy.
Wait, Chamberlain is peace.
You don't know. All right, so that's what we'll talk about today. We're going to start, though, with note cards. We're going to go through the content before we get to the movie. And I want to start with who can tell me, who knows the dates cold? Ben, what is the dates of World War II? Right, and I want you to know them cold so that you can orient other things to that. Don't say no random questions. 39 to 45. Okay. Hitler first took over. He first had this sort of bloodless revolution where he took over 3 different lands, and I'm going to point this out to you on a map. Here's Germany. He was Austrian, so Hitler always dreamed of reuniting Austria and Hungary, and it was the very first thing that he did. Now, I want to tell you, though, that there were a lot of Austrians who saw themselves as Germans. And even when like a vote was taken, the vast majority of Austrians voted to be part of Germany. Having said that, they were also, their elections were being held by Nazi soldiers, and it would have been posted if they hadn't voted the way that Hitler wanted them to. But nevertheless, there were very few resistors. This was called the Anschluss, and I'll show you something about it in just a minute. The second Sudetenland was sort of around the border here of Czechoslovakia, and then Czechoslovakia. All 3 of those countries just taken with no fighting, not even other countries saying declaring war, just gone. The Anschluss is what was happening during the Sound of Music. So I'm going to show you just a tiny bit of Sound of Music, and you'll see a little bit of that here.
Herr Detweiler. Hi, Hitler.
Good afternoon, Herr General.
Perhaps you've not heard. I'm now the Karlleiter. Heil Hitler.
Hi.
I have just come from the house of Captain von Trapp. Incidentally, the only one in the neighborhood not flying the flag of the Third Reich since the Anschluss, but we have dealt with that situation. The housekeeper told me that I would find you here. It was the only information the woman would give me.
What kind of information are you looking for?
We want to know when the captain will be returned.
Well, he's on his honeymoon trip. He's not been in touch with us.
Are you asking me to believe that the captain has not communicated with his children in over a month?
Herr Zeller, how many men do you know who communicate with their children while on their honeymoon?
All right. So, Captain Von Trapp. This is a story of an actual person. Captain Von Trapp was guys, I'm sorry about the noise, but just try to
What
stay
is
focused.
that?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's not even interesting. This is more interesting. Stay with me. Hopefully it'll stop. Captain von Trapp was an Austrian naval hero. The Germans wanted him to fight on their side. Von Trapp was not willing to be part of the German army. He was opposed to the Anschluss, and he and his new wife and the 7 children escaped, went over the Alps, hiked over, and eventually immigrated to America, and their family home is in Vermont. Has anyone visited the Von Trapp family home in Vermont? It's like a place you can go. Okay, so I told you that there were people who there were these countries that were taken over with no fight at all. This is related to the Munich Pact. Who can tell me what the Munich Pact was? Yes, Lauren.
It was kind of a document that Hitler signed that said that he had permission to take over student.
Right. And who was it that gave him permission to just take Sudetenland?
He was part of Britain.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the Neil guy?
Neville Chamberlain. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was Britain, but also France and also Italy. When they said you can take Sudetenland, they basically are saying we're not going to reinforce what? What are they not reinforcing? What was the agreement that Hitler was violating? That said they weren't supposed to build up arms, they weren't supposed to take other countries.
It was the Versailles.
Yes, the Treaty of Versailles. So the Treaty of Versailles after World War I limited how much military Germany could have, so they could never do this again. They could never have this much power. These countries were giving to Hitler over and over again. I just want you to imagine like this, that Chamberlain and these people were like, Hitler, just pinky swear. Just promise us if we let you take this, that you just don't do it again. Promise, Hitler? You promise, like, if we let you have Sudetenland and we don't go to war against you, that you'll stop there. You won't take any more countries. And he's like, sure. I won't. Sure, I'm not going to take anything else. They're like, oh, good. We just avoided war. That's how it went. It was just ignoring all the signs of what Hitler was really doing. This is a picture from the book. I thought it was really sort of magnificent picture. Right here you see, this is annoying music. Okay, I need you guys to try to focus anyway. I'm sorry about the noise. I don't want you to tell Seth. Okay, I'm not having you learn quite yet which countries were on which sides, but do you know where this is?
It's downstairs.
I think they're practicing something.
Yeah.
All right, there's nothing we can do about it then. Just try to focus. Both Germany and the Soviet Union were attacking Poland. You guys read about this in the book. You did read the book, right? Like, not just look for answers. It just was terrible what they were going through at that same time. And so Poland suffered this invasion. The two sides were called what, Bethany? What did you say? Axis and Allied. When America finally did enter, which side did we enter on? Allied, right. And that was both wars. Both wars, it was Allied powers. Okay. In World War I, what was the kind of warfare? Everybody knows this. Trench warfare. Was trench warfare fast or slow? So slow. In World War II, the kind of warfare is called blitzkrieg. This was the German strategy. Fast or slow? So fast. It was so fast. What do you want to tell me about it, Blake?
Well, it was called the Lightning War, like that's what it means, and it describes the fast and furious.
Yes. And when they were attacking fast and furious, this is the way listen to the strategy. Okay, we're going to take all of our tanks and our planes and our bombers and our heavier artillery and our paratroopers and our ground troops, and at the same time go into one place. All at the same time. You think this is going to work?
Yes.
Overwhelming success. This strategy was developed by a German officer who had suffered through trench warfare in World War I and did not want to do that again. So he came up with a method that he thought could avoid the trench warfare standoff.
There was still trench warfare.
It wasn't the primary mode of it. So what happened instead is that I put all the countries and I put the dates here so that you could see this. Poland, that you just saw that picture of the pressure on both sides, was taken in 5 weeks. Poland's a very large country. Denmark, he turned to Denmark 1 day. Sent it all in, Denmark fell in 1 day. Norway held out for a few weeks. Luxembourg, a tiny little city country, fell in a few hours. And then the Netherlands fought ferociously for 4 days. And then Belgium, 18 days. And northern France, that power, like one of the major powers of Europe, only stood for 6 weeks before Hitler overwhelmed them. Hitler seemed unstoppable. The Blitzkrieg worked so well, he seemed unstoppable. And Europe, all the powers of Europe, one after another, domino, falling to Hitler. There was only one power left to stand against Hitler, and what was that? Only Great Britain. America was not involved. American Congress had a policy of neutrality and said, none of it. We're not getting into a war. No way. So Winston Churchill, in his leadership, was the only thing standing between Hitler and full domination of all of Europe. Now, you read about the evacuation of Dunkirk, and I want you to know that when you're thinking about the whole story of World War II, at Dunkirk, Great Britain came this close to losing everything. They had their entire army trapped in Dunkirk. The entire army. Had they lost them all there, they would not have had military to fight against Hitler. This was a near, utter, and complete disaster and would have changed, most likely, the outcome of the entire war. Was Dunkirk on Great Britain, the island, or was it on the mainland of Europe? The mainland of Europe. It was in France. And you guys know what happened because you read about it. These cornered troops have little hope, and it was the civilian boats. Can you cut the lights? I want to show you a couple of things of what happened. So this picture shows us how Dunkirk, my pointer is pointing at Dunkirk, and then there's another city over a little bit west of that called Calais, both in France. Dunkirk and Calais in France, across the English Channel from England. And the whole attempt was, can we move these troops across the water? It's much more difficult than just moving people on land. The initial plan, the hope, was that England could save this many troops. They hoped that they might be able to save 45,000 troops. About 1/10 of their force was their goal. Instead, because of the way that it was executed with civilian boats, 338,000 troops were evacuated and saved, which saved the whole British Army to be able to fight another day. You can see here that fewer of them were saved off the beaches. A lot more were saved from harbors. Did any of you guys see the Dunkirk movie?
Yeah.
There's a lot of beaches in it. It's the one that Harry Styles is in. It is, however, like, I didn't see the movie. I tried to watch movie clips of it. I'll just say that there's almost no talking, and it's just a lot of people kind of blowing up.
It's scary.
But what happened was that the ships, these boats, saved almost all the people. You can see that there were still a lot of planes lost. I want you to imagine that during the evacuation, all these civilian boats, these people didn't have to do this. They weren't military ordered. They filled up their boats with soldiers, and the German planes are flying over them, basically dropping bombs on the boats, trying to blow up the boats and many of these people still did lose their lives. It was really dangerous, and it was really successful, and it was really miraculous that it all worked. I'm going to show you a little bit from this particular movie, which is about the power of Winston Churchill's speeches during the war, and specifically it's around Dunkirk, around the area. But first we're going to finish with a little bit of the rest of what happened. Okay, so I told you that once the British Army was saved, everything, like Hitler had just wiped out, he just gone through Europe, and he got ahead of himself. It was like at this point, he was ready to take on Great Britain, except he had no plan at all. And having no plan, Great Britain came up with a plan, and the plan was, let's not go fight him in Europe. Let's make him come to us. What is the difference geographically between Hitler fighting in Europe and Hitler fighting Great Britain? What's the main difference, Micah?
He has to cross the water.
He has to cross the water. You can't drive a tank across the water. You can't drive anything across the water. You have to do boats, and the British were way better at navy than the Germans were. So this is a really different thing. So Hitler's strategy ended up being an air attack. The air attack was called, everybody, it was the Battle of Britain. And the Battle of Britain was fought in the air with these Spitfire planes, as you can see right here. I want to tell you something about the Battle of Britain, because I just want to sort this out in your head. The Battle of Britain only lasted for 10 days. Who won? Britain won. Britain won soundly. And the reason for Britain winning is actually really, really super logical. It's the first time Hitler got ahead of himself and really didn't have a good strategy for attacking. The British commander had a much better strategy. If they have to come to us, we don't have to fly our planes as far. That's good for fuel. Also, planes get shot down, we can just sort of fix them up and use them again. Also, all the German pilots that get shot down, we get to keep them prisoners of war because they're in Great Britain.
How does that help you though?
No, but listen to think about how it was from the British side. If the British RAF, if the pilots are going up into the air to fight, first of all, Britain had been producing a ton of planes. So they had a lot of planes to support this. So these pilots go up into the air, they have a battle, maybe their plane gets shot. I mean, I don't mean like they get mortally wounded, but their plane gets shot. What is the pilot going to do? Parachute out, and then he finds himself where? In the countryside of England. He walks home, has tea, and waits until he gets called to go back out again. And that's what the British did. They just kept doing that. They were basically at home. And then they would just pop back in their plane and do it again. And the British were in much better shape than the Germans were, who had to fly across the water. Their pilots got kept as prisoners and all of that. It was a much better strategy for Britain than it was for Germany, and because of that, it was a solid victory for Britain. So when in your brain you think about the fact that for the entirety of World War II, the Germans were dropping bombs on London, that's not the Battle of Britain. That was Hitler's sort of back-ended attempt to continue to terrorize the British people. Instead of targeting these other bases, he decided to target big cities like London to try to terrorize the people into asking for their like rulers to give up. And guys, it really almost could have worked if there hadn't been a prime minister like Churchill, who was rallying people to fight and to be willing to do it. And in fact, what the British government did was rally the citizens to do what you guys are all aware of because of the Narnia movies. Remember in the Narnia movies?
Yeah.
They put their children on a train, they sent them off with the mad professor to live in the countryside. British people did this all over the place, sent their kids to the countryside, they stayed in the cities and kept the country going. When there were air raids, they went to the subways, they hid from the bombs, then they went back to work. That's keep calm, carry on, just do what you gotta do. We're not gonna let the Germans defeat us like this. Yeah, then?
Well, we have a keep calm, carry on poster.
Yes.
We used to have it.
So keep calm and carry on was not the one that was used the most during World War II. There's two others that were used more. This is one of them. Freedom is in peril, defend it with all your might. That was one of us. Look at the ladies like crocheting next to the sign. And this one, your courage, your cheerfulness, your resolution will bring us victory. That was the messaging of the British government to its own people. You've probably seen posters like this, like if you went to the Marine Museum, you saw a lot of this kind of posters. But that keep calm and carry on is one of the ones that has been used a lot.
That's the
Yeah, some of these are like American ones too. So they're from the whole
yeah, but what's
World War
the
II.
top?
All right, I want to show you a little bit of this movie now. So I'm going to actually stop the video because it will not let me upload that to YouTube. And can I have a volunteer? Blythe, do you want to pass out popcorn to people?